Today's video is brought to you by Card Kingdom. You can pick up all the Magic the Gathering cards you need and support the show and even get a free MTGGoldfish sticker by heading over to cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. Hello everyone and welcome to a super special video. We're through Streets of New Capenna spoiler season, which means it's time to shift gears and start talking about cards that are actually going to be good in various formats. And of course, like usual, to count down our top 10 cards for various constructed formats, I'm joined this week by Crim. How's it going today, Crim?
Yo, pretty excited because Capenna brings back the 3-color combinations that we haven't seen for a while. So I'm excited to see all the sweet new cards from it.
I'm excited too. We're kicking things off with standard. So this is our top 10 standard cards from Streets of New Capenna. And a little reminder before we get into it, Tuesday, the 26th, I think it is, they actually brought back early access day for Streets of New Capenna, where everyone streams and gets to check out the new cards. So if you want to see some of these standard cards in action, I'm going to be streaming on the MTGGoldfish channel. Crim, you're going to be streaming on Tuesday for the early access?
I will be, yeah. So I'm pretty excited for it.
Where do people find you? The Asian Avenger on Twitch?
Yep, that's just my handle on everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to see some of the cards we're going to talk about actually being played in a game of Magic, make sure to check that out. And a couple other reminders before we get into it. This is our combined top 10 list. Me and Crim each made one. We matched it together. You can see our individual lists in the article linked in the description over at mtggoldfish.com. And the triumphs are insane, but we have a rule on our top 10 list that we don't include dual land cycles because they'd be number one every set, and that's just not that interesting. Yeah. So the triumphs are going to be everywhere. They're a great land cycle. They're going to see play from standard back to modern probably. So even though they're not on our list, that's not because they're bad. They're just not that exciting to talk about because they're just lands, but they are really, really good. But anyway, let's jump into our top 10 list. Coming in at number 10 on our list, we got one of my personal favorite cards from the set. I really hope this card's good, Crib. And that is WARCHIEF. It's essentially like a new Thragtusk, kind of, but it has Blitz and it makes a 4/4. It's just so much sweet mid-rangey value. It's got death triggers. It's got ETB triggers. You can even Blitz it in with haste if you want to. So, Crib, you gotta let me know. Am I just massively overrating this and being unreasonably hopeful that a Thragtusk is still good in 2022? Or do you think there's a chance that maybe this is good enough for standard?
I don't know how to really look at this card because when up front I kind of look at it and I'm just like, this is okay, I guess. It's weird. I think the Blitz is what gives it its most value here, because it will die leaving behind a 4/4, right? So, the card is powerful. It's definitely got some play to it, but it all kind of comes down to how much of the removal that we currently are seeing. So how much Vanishing Verse, how much Exile, right? Because you still have Wandering Emperor, everything exiles, right? So that kind of almost hurts the Blitz half and the dying trigger. So I'm just not that high on it. And the thing that is nice is that it does get around Skyclave Apparition and stuff like that, but you still see Brutal Cathar. So there's just so many things that exile right now. And that's the thing that scares me about the card.
Yeah, that is a downside. Although, I think if you Blitz it, do you really want to spend a removal spell on a creature that's going to die anyway? I guess if you exile it, you get rid of the Rhino. So there is still upside to killing it, even if it's blitzed in. But I feel like if you Blitz it in, it's a lot of value. You get to attack with a 5/3 with haste and trample. You gain 3 life, and assuming it doesn't get exiled, you leave behind a 4/4 Rhino Warrior token, and you get to draw a card because of Blitz. That's actually
what about its front side? Because if you're just hard casting it as a 5-mana 5/3 in standard, there's a chance you might die to Goldspan popping off, right? The thing is, this might be just as weird as it sounds. This might be a bit fair.
I will say that just running it out, I'm not sure that's good enough anymore. Thragtusk was pretty bomby back in its day, but Thragtusk also hit a leaves the battlefield trigger rather than a death trigger, so you didn't care if it got exiled, and you could blink it and do all these shenanigans. So I think that if you're just running this out as a 5/3, Probably not quite good enough anymore, at least as a main deck card. Maybe you can bring it in certain matchups or something out of the sideboard. But the Blitz mode is interesting, and I'm intrigued by the possibility of this Blitz mechanic and some of the support. We've seen some support for like sacking stuff on your end step to get advantage out of it. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm hopeful that some sort of Riveteer's Blitz deck will come together. And I think in a deck like that, Workshop WARCHIEF definitely would be good enough if you have the synergies to support it. So don't just run it out as a Thragtusk. I'm not sure that's good enough anymore, but if you can have a Blitz deck and Blitz it in, that's where I think it could be pretty powerful.
Yeah, like the Blitz package will be like, it comes down to just how played the Blitz package is, right? I'll gladly concede the point though, if if the Blitz deck takes off, I'm sure Workshop Chief is somewhere there.
We should keep moving on. Let's go on to number 9 on our list. We got a card that I know you like, Crib, and I like this card too. OBSCURA Interceptor, our new like remand conniving 4-drop Venser style creature. What are you thinking about this one, Crib?
This is, at first I was like, okay, this is a bit overcosted, right? I think like this is like a 4-mana card that where I believe if rules wise, if they respond to this before it connives.
It still works. They actually confirmed this. It was asked on, okay. So the trigger's still going to work and you can still bounce something if they spike field hazard it or whatever. This
card is even better then. Okay, cool. Because I was worried like if they responded to this before it connives, this card would probably not be that great. But the thing here is OBSCURA Interceptor is kind of exactly that tempo play that we want. And looking at the way OBSCURA like whole Triome and whatever shard, whatever you want to call it, it was working this set. It looks like it's going to be Esper in the little more of an aggressive color, right? I mean, you've got already Luminarch Aspirant. You have tons of things that can just slide right into like the OBSCURA plan. And what better than to have something with flash at the end of the opponent's turn or in response to a big sweeper or something like that, like just send it back, right? Oh, like if you bounce a Doomscar or something like that back, it's such a back-breaking play for the control player. This card is so good. And I could also see control playing this out of the sideboard. Right, so this is just a solid threat. And at first, again, like I thought, like 3/1, 4 mana. This is a bit overcost in 2022. But as I sit down and think about it, the amount of like games that we play right now in Standard that just revolve around big bombs, 1 a turn, is a lot. Right, Lolth. Right, just jam a Lolth, jam 1 threat. Right, this kind of just sends it right back and leaves you with a body. This is huge.
Yeah, I think this card's I think really, really good. All the tempo stuff is true. Esper's a tempo color. It lines up well with Standard. And I think the lifelink is actually like pretty relevant. I think the fact that you can play this, and if you connive a non-land card, it's going to be a 4/2 flash lifelinker. That actually makes it pretty relevant against aggro too. Just like flashing in to eat a creature against mono white or something, gain 4 life. Even that's pretty powerful. So it seems like one of those cards that's good against control, good against the decks trying to cast those big game-ending bombs, but also like not bad at least against aggro, thanks to the ability to just like flash it in and eat a blocker and gain a bit of life, which I think makes it a good card. Like if you're good against aggro and good against control, like that's kind of where you want to be in some sort of tempo-y, mid-rangey aggro style deck, which I think is where Esper's going to end up. So seems like a Esper all-star for new Standard.
And with like one of the premier decks being mono white, using what exactly? Well, of course, using Brutal Cathar. Now they have to be very careful because when they eat this with Brutal Cathar, it can come back.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, so I think this card's gonna be very, very solid. And we've already seen like mono white deck splashing additional colors. We've even seen blue white. Like people play the white weenie deck, but then they splash into blue for counters. With Triomes especially, it doesn't seem like a stretch that you can splash into a third color and play like these white weenie decks with OBSCURA Interceptor and some of the good Esper cards that we're getting from Streets of New Capenna. So, Anyway, let's keep moving on. Number 8 on our list. We have one of my favorite little aggro threats in the format. Tenacious Underdog. 2 mana, 3/2, blah, 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 blah. The big deal is you can blitz it for 4 mana and 2 life, and you can blitz it from your graveyard. So this keeps coming back. In the late game, this is 4 mana, pay 2 life, draw a card, worst case, maybe getting some damage, turn on any sacrifice synergies that you have, which we have many of them in standard. You're triggering your Meat Hook Massacres, you're sacking it to Deadly Disputes or whatever you want to do. So I actually think this is a really, really powerful grindy effect for some of those sacrifice decks that we have going on. And if the blitz deck takes off, I think it would be a nice option there because you have those synergies. But I'm more hyped about this is showing up in those Eye Twitch, Shambling Gas, Sacrifice, White-Black Control, grind you down to the late game style decks, while also just being a 3/2 for 2, that's good enough to play in an aggro deck. It's good at crewing vehicles, so maybe we see some sort of aggro style black deck develop. But Crim, what do you think about this Underdog?
Actually, I think this card's pretty good. I'm not sure, like, again, like, the one thing here is everything exiles, which is just a big concern, right? Like, I'm concerned for the Blitz package as a whole, but this is probably the premier Blitz card, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think this is, like, the best Blitz card here. Just being able to, like, come down on turn 2 as a 3/2, that's fine, whatever, right? But it's a 3/2 that can just keep coming back. And this one is one of those ones where it's a little awkward, you know, like if I have exile, how do I want to answer this? But like, yeah, like, do I want to answer this? And other than that, I think this is just a very good card though, right? Like it's able to come back constantly and it's a 3/2 for 2. Not a bad rate at all. So I like this. And this is going to be probably the centerpiece of a Blitz package.
Yeah, I think this is like the number 1 Blitz card. So if we see Blitz work in standard, I'm sure Tenacious Underdog will be a part of it. But let's move on to number 7 on our list. We got a card, Crim, that I know you're really high on, which is a little 1 mana blue instant, slip out back, phasing something out for a single mana. What are you envisioning with this one in standard, Crim?
Okay, so we already have Goldspan running all, like, that's a tier deck, right? That's a tier 1 deck, Hinata. So what better than to net a treasure, get your dragon to be stronger and phase it out, right? Like, it's just like, cool, you can sweep away. And I like right now they're already trying to, you know, Fading Hope, bounce their dragon back, to get around your sweepers, all that. They don't have to redeploy the dragon's still there. This card is huge. For any kind of tempo deck like that, like, this is amazing. And I tried like a blue-black tempo deck. This is exactly what I would want in a blue-black tempo Delvery deck. Like blue-white tempo. This is a huge piece for any kind of blue tempo deck. Or any deck that revolves around one big bomb, like as I had mentioned, the Hinatas and the dragon deck. So I think this is big. This card is huge.
Oh yeah, this card is very, very good. I mean, you could even use it to like save Lear multiple times if you wanted to. There's so many different ways to use this. We were just talking about Esper being this tempo-y kind of color, so it could fit in those like blue-white Esper style tempo decks. And phasing out is just really, really important right now. Like with the removal that we're getting, with the farewells that we're getting, the exile, everything, we got so much exile-based removal. A lot of the old protection spells just don't work that well. Like your God's Willing isn't going to save you from a farewell, and this one isn't going to save you from a Vanishing Words because it makes your thing indestructible. Phasing out is the ultimate form of protection. Like, you know your thing's going to survive. So I think this card is one of those cards that a few years ago I'd be like, yeah, whatever, it's another protection spell. But with what we have in 2022 and the kind of removal we have, I think this is just like essential protection for any sort of deck that's looking to protect their creatures and even get the bonus of having it come back in a little bit bigger, and technically you can use it on your opponent's stuff. You probably don't want to often because you'll give them the counter, but if you can like blink or phase out a blocker in Alpha Strike, that's totally worth it.
Yeah, I've seen people use Spectral Adversary, right, for the same thing, right? Like phase out an opponent's, phase their own, you know, like this. This is exactly that, cheaper. And again, oh wow, Capenna's like uncommons are like really good. Like they're really good this time around. Like I think a good chunk of my cards, like if I could pick them, were probably gonna be uncommon.
I gotta give Wizards a lot of credit for that, because a few years ago, commons and uncommons were kind of throwaways. Like I would like kind of look right over them because they were just boring and they were all the same. But Wizards has really made not only better commons and uncommons, but way more interesting commons and uncommons like the last year or two. And I think that's like been a huge deal, like super helpful, because they're pretty accessible on Arena and in paper. Like that's one of the upsides. So I'm glad that commons and uncommons aren't just throwaway cards anymore. And this is a good example of a very powerful uncommon.
Fully, yeah.
Let's move on to number 6 on our list. Speaking of really good removal, we have Endless Detour, kind of a super ether gust, almost 3-mana instant, putting a spell, a non-land permanent, or a card from the graveyard on the top or bottom of their owner's library. Crim, what do you think about Endless Detour in Standard?
This almost makes me want to adopt green into my decks, right? Like I almost thought about dropping black for this. Like, this card is good.
You know a card's good when Crim considers adding green to his control decks.
Yeah. I like, look at that. Like, this is exactly what you want. Now, people are saying, isn't this what got Divide by Zero banned? Divide by Zero also learned or got you a lesson, so it drew a card. And on, like, I mean, I don't know. I could see the color restriction actually being more harmful than, of course, Divide by Zero. That's I think where this gets balanced. But holy cow, if you can get this on 3, this is amazing. The fact that, again, you can hit something in the yard. Right? Like, what? That's absurd. This card hitting graveyards is absolutely cracked. You have target spell, so it interacts on the stack. It bounces a non-land permanent, so your creature lands are safe, but like, holy cow. This is, if there is some form, I don't even know the Bant, 'cause that's how much I ignore green sometimes, but like, I don't even know the new name for Bant, but, the Bant family, right? Like, holy cow. If there's a reason for me to roll with the Bant family, it's single-handedly on this card.
Oh yeah, this is the reason to play Bant in Standard, I think, and it's really good. Like, even just Ether Gust is a really demoralizing card sometimes. If you're getting hit by 2 of those in a row, it's like, oh my god, come on, stop doing that. Like, just let me draw a card and like play my game of Magic. This does that, but so much better with so much more flexibility. As you mentioned, the only problem with these 3-color cards is that they're 3 colors, and sometimes there's really powerful 3-color cards that don't find a home just because their color combination never takes off. So we'll have to wait and see. It's kind of the same thing we were talking about.
5-mana Sarkhan.
Yeah. Ooh, 5-mana Sarkhan.
I remember that one. That the Teamer one was actually pretty good, but like,
I thought it was so broken. I thought that Planeswalker was so good, and then no one ever played it. But yeah, so that does occasionally. It does occasionally happen, but I think the power level of this card is high enough that it makes me want to build a Bant deck just to have access to this. And you can use it on yourself, that graveyard mode, sneakily, like in the late game, when one of your good things gets killed, your Wren or whatever is in the graveyard. This is a way that you can just put that back on top of your deck and cast it the next turn. So it's going to be hard for this to ever be bad. Even in late game top deck mode, your opponent's got nothing you want to target. Worst case, you can get something back from your graveyard, get your best thing back from the graveyard. So this is just really good Bant card.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving on. Next on our list, we got one of our new mythics, RAFFINE Scheming Seer. And this card, oh my goodness, this card is just so crazy. So Esper, 1/4 flying ward for 3 mana. When you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. The first thing I thought of when I saw this is, Luminarch Aspirant is so good that they're nerfing it on Arena. This does kind of the same thing. It is 1 more mana. It is in 3 colors, all that stuff. But you get that same play pattern where, like, you play a 1-drop, you play a 2-drop, you follow it up with RAFFINE, you attack with your 2 creatures. You get to put potentially 2 counters on things, and you get to loot, so you're filling your graveyard along the way, digging to find more action. This card seemed bonkers to me. We've talked about that Esper Tempo deck. Like, this is the reason to play Esper Tempo. This is like the card that leads that. And we got so many good white support cards. White is already the dominant color in Standard, so it's got tons of fuel for this archetype. But Crim, I'm rambling on. What do you think about RAFFINE?
This is like I really hope we're not wrong on this, but I legitimately feel like this is just an absolute house, right? This card is very well, like efficiently costed, right? It curves out perfectly, allows you to get some early threats to immediately benefit from the connive, right? Because it itself does not care about attacking. It's just you're attacking creatures while it's on the board. So that at first I thought this was bad because I thought it had to attack. But no, this is so much better. And the Ward 1 is more relevant than you think. And it's a good body. It's a 1/4. It doesn't get frostbitten. It doesn't, there's a lot that it has going for it. And it being like Esper colors is the only thing that makes me worried about curving into it, right? But actually, if you think about the mana base, we have a pretty good mana base between the Midnight Hunt lands, the Pathways, and now the Triomes. So, there's a good chance this hits on 3.
Yeah, I think the mana is good enough to make that work now, especially with Triomes entering the mix. So we still have the same kind of caveat we had before. Sometimes really powerful 3-color cards don't work out because their color combinations don't work out. But out of all these really powerful 3-color cards, this is the one that to me seems most can't miss, just because white's already so good in standard. I can just envision in my head the deck that makes this work, and it seems like this is just so perfect and good and exactly what you want. And if you're playing some sort of aggro deck, with this being kind of the centerpiece, the connive is huge. This is making sure you're not gonna flood out or whatever. If you draw extra lands, you can always connive them away and find more action to force your advantage and close out the game. So I don't know. Hopefully we're not wrong on this one, but this is one of the cards that I think has the best chance to be the centerpiece of a top tier deck in standard out of our whole list, honestly.
Oh, fully. I mean, the thing though now is just it's an embarrassment of riches, right? They have so many good 3-drops between Paulo, between, Brutal Cathar, whatever, Skyclave and Raffine. There's so many things here.
Yeah, actually, hilariously, Crim, out of the top 10 creatures in standard right now, 7 of them are white 3-drops. You got Adeleine, Guardian of Faith, Archon of Emeria, Brutal Cathar, Elite Spellbinder, Redain, Skyclave, and then you have Goldspan, Legion Angel, Luminarch Aspirant. But yeah, that. I guess that's the other concern, is there is a lot of competition for the 3-drop slot in white decks, but still, I think this does enough to make it. It's got to be in the mix at least.
Right, fully.
Well, let's keep moving on. Number 4 on our list. We got one of my favorite cards. I love my value, and this is just the biggest value card, Titan of Industry. It's about 1 million mana, but it's huge. 7 mana, 7/7 reach trample.
Roughly 1 million.
Yeah, basically 1 million. When it enters the battlefield, you get to choose 2 of a huge list of things: blowing up artifacts and enchantments, gaining life, making rhinos, putting a shield counter on something. To me, this is the thing I want to ramp into, I think, most in standard. Comb is very good. Jin is okay. But I think this is just a new premier ramp threat. And I think that ramp is a somewhat underappreciated archetype in standard right now. We saw a while ago these right after Ren came out, there was a time when people were actively building ramp decks. They've kind of fallen off lately when there's been so many aggro decks running around. But I really think that this is kind of the perfect stabilization card, where Coma, there's times when you get up to 7 mana, you ramp into it, but you're behind on board against aggro, and you play it, and your opponent can still alpha strike through it. This is going to come down, make another blocker, make a 4/4 Rhino, give you a big body, gain you 5 life. This seems like the kind of card that can maybe keep ramp going and catch you up in those aggro matchups. So I'm really excited about that. I guess you could also reanimate it. I think it's in weird colors for reanimation, but still, I mean, whatever. If you're reanimating, you can kind of make it work. But I think this is just one of the best new top end threats in our standard format. Crim, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, this is definitely a very, very strong card, right? And I think even for me, I love this. I think this is a fun card to ramp into, and just like you had mentioned, that was the biggest issue. Ramp just couldn't quite survive the aggression, right? And I mean, I'd like to think gaining 5 and getting a 4/4 and a 7/7 would help, right? So this just has to be the premier ramp threat.
Yeah, this is, if you're playing a green ramp deck, I think this is what you want to ramp into. You can play Coma too, or some of the other options, but I think this is the one that I'm aiming for. So we'll have to wait and see, but it's got a lot of text on it and really powerful once it hits the battlefield. Moving into our top 3, number 3 on our list, we got a new Planeswalker, NIXILIS the Adversary, or 2 new Planeswalkers, kind of. Crim, what do you think about this one?
Okay, this card is just absolutely busted, right? Like I mean, like I don't think it's getting banned anytime soon, or I hope not. But like the thing here is the card is strong. I think the casualty part of it, making a second copy, is so good. And then you get the +1 the Punisher effect, which is like fine. I love that too. And you can make a body. I don't know how often you're doing that, but like this card just seems like being able to get 2 planeswalkers in colors that would love to like get that casualty off, is exactly what you want. Like, we already have, like, eye twitches, we already have, shambling gas, all this stuff, so why not? And we already see Mardu midrange running around, so yeah, this seems exactly like what I'd want. And if there's a Blitz package, yeah, I'd love to throw an underdog into this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's synergized as well there too. We already know through Magic's history that 3-mana planeswalkers tend to be pretty strong. Those are some of the strongest planeswalkers, Lilianas and Okos. Throughout Magic's history, that's really good. This is 2 3-mana planeswalkers for 1 card, which is crazy, and it lines up so well with what we got going on in Standard. You mentioned all the new stuff like Blitz and whatnot, but we also got all the old sacrifice decks. We got the Rakdos, like weird blood token sacrifice decks with Voldaren Epicures and Anvils and such. We got straight up eye twitch sacrifice decks. The mana's getting better, so it seems very easy that if you wanted to make your white black sack deck into a Mardu deck, this would be easy enough to make the mana work thanks to all of our new dual lands. So I think this card's just going to have a huge impact. I've had some people also send me decks that are like built around trying to ultimate the copy, and there are pieces people are playing like this weird Jund deck with Daemogoth Woe Eater and the new the bad 3-drop Dark Confidant thing. Oh, I didn't see Shadow Mortality, although maybe that could actually work there too, where you're just trying to like ultimate this right away and refill your hand. So there's so many possibilities with this card. I would be shocked if this card wasn't just good, but great. Like, I don't know how this card can miss. We've had some speculative cards on the list. This one, like, how can it not be good? I can't imagine a world where it's not going to be good enough for Standard.
I think this is what the Jace from Zendikar wanted to be.
Yes. Oh, so much. That card fell really flat, but you had to pay 5 mana to get the copy of it, and its abilities weren't that good. And yeah, this is what that Jace wanted to be for sure. So I think this card's gonna be awesome. Anyway, let's move on. Number 2 on our list, Crim. I'll just let you handle this one. Void Rend, a little bit of Esper removal. Crim, what do you think about this?
Oh my god, this card is the removal, right? It destroys any non-land permanent, and it can't be countered. The can't be countered part probably going to be more relevant than you would think. But yeah, like this is just the removal spell. This is the Vindicate at instant speed, right? Like, this is what you want. It hits anything you want. It can blow up like any permanent, and that's the flexibility. This is just really good. There's nothing more to really say. It's not fancy. It's just a good old kill spell, but it's a kill spell that hits anything and can't be countered. Beautiful.
The only thing I'll add is every time we've seen this can't be countered mechanic, it's stable on cards like this. It's been great. Dovin's Veto, Supreme Verdict, Abrupt Decay, like every time they do this, those cards end up being staples, not just in Standard, but other formats as well. I don't see any reason why Void Rend will not do the same exact thing. This is the new premier removal spell in the format, I think, and it gets even more important because we're entering multicolor world where Vanishing Verse, I think, is getting a lot worse. So if you're one of those control players, you really need a premium removal spell. I think this is it. This is probably just way better than Vanishing Verse right now that New Capenna's running around.
This is where, it is. It is. I think this is really good, although I do love the exile part of Vanishing Verse, and it's only 2 mana, but I see no reason not to play both. You just go full 8, remove everything, right?
Nothing will live against Esper.
Esper Control got some tools here, but as you see, this is just destroy. So shield counters are going to be relevant. If this is the premier removal spell, shield counters are going to be very good.
It's a good point. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, but this card definitely very Standard playable. Let's move on. Number 1 on our list, we did a little bit of cheating. We don't just have 1 card, we got an entire cycle of cards, and that is the Charm cycle. So I think for Standard in specific, these cards are just great, even the weakest of the bunch. And I think that Cabretti Charm, the Naya one, is probably my pick for the weakest of the bunch. But even the weakest of the bunch is going to be really good in decks of their colors. Like, it does exactly what their family's about in New Capenna. So if you're playing its colors, you're probably going to play these cards. But Crim, do any of these in specific stand out to you as being the most important or the best for Standard?
I'm definitely seeing a world where Maestro's Charm, Riveteer's Charm, and Obscura Charm are going to be very good. And believe it or not, I don't think Cabaretti's that bad. I think the most bland one is probably going to be the Bant one. The Draw 2 is nice, but like, I think Cabaretti, within the themes of what Cabaretti's trying to do, that charm's actually pretty decent. It's pretty it got a lot of flack day one on spoiler. And like, yeah, all of these abilities may not be great when you think about like, you know, what the spell is but like when you think about the flexibility again, charms have been a staple every time they've been in every format, right? When cons came out, everyone said Jeskai Charm was the weakest, right? But Jeskai Charm ended up lighting up so many people's faces, right? So, like this is just going to be one of those things where I think Maestro's Charm, people like kind of ragged on this too, but if the way the Maestros are going, it's going to be aggressive. This is burn. This is a helix, right? This is a way for you to get life and like to also drain them. This is a way for you to filter your draws, remove something. Riveteer's Charm. Okay, Riveteer's Charm is actually, I think, just like the best charm. But like, holy cow. Even Obscura Charm has like a lot of play. If everything's going multicolored, being able to reanimate something, that's amazing at instant speed. So bringing back your, it has to be multicolored. And then I think that's it. That's the only pre-requirement. So I can bring back Raffine, which is exactly what I want to do. And yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, even the Cabretti Charm, the Naya one, in the context of Naya in Standard, where it's all about going wide in tokens, it's still a fine card. Like, if you're playing a Naya deck, you're probably going to be playing maybe even a full playset of those. And I think the same is true of essentially all these charms. They really do what their color combination, what their family, what their shard, whatever you want to call it, it really supports what they're trying to do. So the only question is, like, which of these color combinations are best? Because I think if you're playing these color combinations, if not in the main deck, at least in the sideboard, you're likely to have probably a full playset of these cards somewhere because they just offer so much flexibility and such perfect support for what your color combination is trying to do. So these cards can have just a massive, massive impact on Standard, and you're going to see them all over the place. And thankfully, another set of really good uncommons. So they should be pretty easy for players to get, which is a nice little bonus that our number one card is actually a lore rarity card this time around.
Right. And again, like I don't even see the purpose of sideboarding any of these. Like, look at all the modes. Yeah. They do something you would sideboard into, right?
Yeah.
Like a deck, you need more removal. Maestro Charm's got that. You need to remove a graveyard. Riveteer's Charm does that. So these cards are just, again, the flexibility makes it so like these charms are almost guaranteed to be in the main deck. Like, there's no need to push them in the sideboard.
And a big part of the power, I think, of these cards is you get some sideboard effects in your main deck. Like Riveteer's Charm is the best example. You can't really play a card that just says exile target player's graveyard in the main deck of most formats, but you can definitely play the sacrifice effect, getting rid of your opponent's most expensive creature or planeswalker for 3 mana. That's a very main deckable effect. So you're playing this as a good removal spell, and then you just incidentally have a Tormod's Crypt, which is occasionally going to absolutely wreck someone and just win you a game. Yeah. So that is a big part of the power. People get stuck up on the efficiency of charms a lot of times, and that's not what they're about. They're about being able to have all these different effects in your deck that you wouldn't usually have access to if it wasn't for the fact that they were coming on a modal spell on one of these charms. So yeah, these cards are just, they're so good. I'm so excited to have charms back, and they're so much fun to play with. I've really enjoyed basically every standard I've played that's been a charm standard, a 3-color charm style standard. They're just really, really fun. So super, super hyped to play with.
One could say it's a charming standard.
Right? Very good, right? Very good. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
On that note, that brings us to the end of our top 10 standard card from Streets of New Capenna. So, Crim, thanks for hanging out and doing this. It's always fun.
As always, love being here.
And thanks to everyone for watching. Now that you've seen our top 10 standard cards from New Capenna, make sure to let us know in the comments what standard cards you're most hyped for, and we will be back tomorrow to talk about some modern action, our favorite modern cards. So until then, have a great one, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.